at the record and say, okay, we're still good right now. But look at the record and be like, if we keep playing this type of football, how long is that shit gonna last? Winning like how we did, it's not gonna get us nowhere. I'm just at a point where it was just like, man, I'm just tired of this shit.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-4 and look like a serious playoff contender this season, yet somehow they've been outgained in every game so far this year, have a bottom 5 offense, and a negative point differential. So in this video, we're going to discuss how the Steelers are in this position, what the rest of their season will look like, and why they're the strangest team in the entire National Football League. Now, coming into 2023, the Steelers had a decent amount of hype. They were coming off of a 9-8 campaign with a rookie quarterback and TJ Watt missing much of the season, and in the offseason they had a very nice draft and getting multiple high-impact starters, and they still had head coach Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches in the league who has never had a losing season in his 17 years of coaching. And me personally, I thought the Steelers were going to take a massive leap this year. I posted a video a week before the season started, basically overviewing the Steelers roster and why they could be a sneaky team in the AFC. My reasons for that, however, really haven't come to fruition yet this season, and that was quarterback Kenny Pickett taking a massive leap in development and the offense being more explosive than it was last year. And we saw pretty early on that that was not going to be the case. Pickett is currently completing 60% of his passes for 1,700 yards, 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions with a 79.2 quarterback rating. You combine those numbers with the fact that he seems a bit lost at times, often isn't synced up with the routes his wide receivers are running, and it looks really rough at times. There's been a lot of outbursts on the sideline from wide receivers George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, who have been really frustrated, and Johnson even posted a tweet replying to a fan who called him out after the game on Sunday, basically saying, "I ran the right route, it was Pickett's fault." So the passing element of the offense has been pretty dreadful. The Steelers are the second worst passing offense in football, only ahead of the New York Giants, who have been starting undrafted rookie quarterback Tommy DeVito for multiple weeks now. And when you have the weapons the Steelers do on offense, the type of production is just not acceptable. And early Tuesday morning, the Steelers finally made a change, firing offensive coordinator Matt Canada. So we'll see how big of a difference that makes. And I definitely don't think Canada is good, but I also don't put all of the blame on him for the struggles this season and even last season. I go back to just this past Sunday, and Pickett had a lot of open wide receivers at times. He was just flat out missing them, not throwing it to the right spot, or having some miscommunication problems. So maybe this firing lights a spark, but the passing attack has to improve if the Steelers are going to make a run down the stretch. But on the contrary, the Steelers' rushing attack has really picked up the last several weeks as they run for over 150 yards in 3 straight games. I talked about the two-headed monster heading into the season, and they're proving to be one of the best tandems in football. Najee Harris has 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Jaylen Warren has basically the exact same numbers with 492 yards and 3 touchdowns himself. It's really become a split backfield, but I'm starting to sense that Warren might start getting the bulk of the carries pretty soon. I mean, it's just pretty apparent he has so much more juice than Najee at this point, and he provides a lot more in the receiving game as well. I mean, to put it into perspective, Najee has 128 carries on the season and is only averaging 3.9 yards per, while Warren has 80 carries, which is 48 less, and is averaging a ridiculous 6.2 yards. But nonetheless, despite their slow start rushing the ball, they're now ranked as the 16th best rushing offense in the league, and I expect that number to continue to rise as we approach December. So with an offense that bad, how in the hell are the Steelers 6-4? Well, it's pretty simple. It's their defense, and they've been playing out of their mind really since the beginning of the season. They currently rank 7th in the NFL in points allowed per game and are tied for 2nd in the league in takeaways with 19. TJ Watt has been his normal self with 11.5 sacks and a pick. Rookies Joey Porter Jr. and Keanu Benton have played very well themselves, and their new free agency pickup linebacker Landon Roberts is having a great season as he leads the team with 71 tackles, and they've put together these defensive performances with Minkah Fitzpatrick really missing 4 games and Cameron Hayward, their veteran defensive tackle, missing 6. So despite not having 2 of their best players on that unit for multiple games this season, it's been the defense that's really kept this team afloat. But despite the adversity this team has faced and the lackluster offense to start the season, they're currently sitting 2 games above 500 with 7 games left. The Steelers currently hold the last playoff spot in the AFC, and strength of schedule wise compared to their competitors, they have the easiest remaining schedule compared to the other wildcard contenders. Pittsburgh will be at Cincinnati next week, but that's without Joe Burrow playing. Jake Browning will start for the Bengals, and he's thrown only 15 passes in his entire career, so there's a great possibility that the Steelers defense has a field day against an inexperienced quarterback and a pretty weak offensive line. Then after the Bengals, they get to play 2 of the worst teams in the league in the Cardinals Cardinals, and the Patriots, both of them at home. The Steelers will likely be pretty big favorites in both of them as well. After that home stretch, then they traveled to Indianapolis to face off against the Colts, another pretty mid team, and then the Bengals again, but at home. Then the final 2 games to close out the season are on the road against the Seahawks and the Ravens, and I think 10 wins is the magic number for the Steelers to get into the playoffs. And with that remaining schedule, it's hard not to see them getting that. So I do think that we will see the Steelers in the playoffs, and then the question becomes, can they make any noise? As it sits right now, their opening wildcard game would be on the road in Kansas City, and I don't think that would be a good matchup for Pittsburgh. You remember that wildcard game between them back in 2021? I think it would be a pretty similar result to that. If I were a Steelers fan, I'd probably root to play Jacksonville or Baltimore just because you know you can compete with them. The Steelers have already beaten the Ravens this season, and divisional games are always weird, and their matchup with the Jaguars earlier this year came down to the wire as well. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Before the playoffs even arrive, the Steelers have to focus on getting their offense going. They can't continue to play so poor for 3 quarters and hope to come from behind and win in the 4th quarter every week. We saw just this past Sunday how unsustainable that is, even against a rookie quarterback. Being the 28th scoring offense in the league with 16 points per game just isn't good enough, and that will win them a playoff game in 2023, 2024, or really any year. So if the Steelers offense can just find a way to get into the end zone 3 times a game, I believe that makes them a lot scarier of a team, and time will tell if they can achieve that this season. I believe they have the weaponry to accomplish that, so there's a lot of pressure on Kenny Pickett and new play caller Mike Sullivan to figure this out. And Tomlin's approach to replacing Canada is a bit weird. They're basically going to be running a co-offensive coordinator system now. I mentioned Sullivan, who is the quarterback's coach. He's set to call the plays, but also running backs coach Eddie Fulker is going to have a role in designing the game plans throughout the week. I'm not exactly sure how that will work out. I'm not a huge fan of having 2 guys do a 1-person job, but I do ultimately think that a change was necessary. And the memes this past week of the Bills firing their offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey before the Steelers moved on from Canada were pretty funny, and I do wonder if that firing had anything to do with this one. The Bills offense desperately needed a spark, and it seemed to work, at least just this past week it did against a good Jets defense. They limited the turnovers, had multiple explosive plays, and I think Tomlin is hoping for a similar result. And this Sunday against the Bengals is a good get-right game for the offense, because Cincinnati's defense hasn't been great this year. They're allowing the 11th most points per game and have the 2nd worst rushing defense in the league. And with how the Steelers have been running the football recently, there's not a better game where this offense could kick into gear. So I'm going to keep my eye on this offense and see what changes. I think building off of the run game is a start. More play action, more getting Kenny Pickett on the move would be very beneficial to the pass game. And then there needs to be more deep shots. Pickett has the 2nd worst yards per attempt average in the league with 6.1, and that makes it tougher to run the football when teams can just stack the box. You have receivers that can get deep in Calvin Austin and George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Just take some occasional shots, and that will definitely open up a lot for this offense. But in the end, I view it like this: the Steelers defense will keep them in every game the rest of the year, and it's going to come down to the offense being able to win them these games in December and January, and that's what's ultimately going to define their season. But I want to know what you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they can accomplish this season. Do you think they can be a legit threat in the AFC and actually win a playoff game, or do you not even see them making the playoffs? But subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.